How Asia culture ruined my career in the West. Part A. The first day I arrived at work, the consultants got fired because they did not challenge my boss. It was a huge shock to me. My name's Eric, I'm from Hong Kong. I lived in the UK, Canada, in mainland China, and also working now in Germany. One thing has become painfully clear. Asian values doesn't always work well in the Western offices. But the biggest surprise is that the biggest cultural shock I had was actually working in mainland China compared with Hong Kong. But that's a separate video. In this channel, apart from talking about cultural shocks and inspirations, working in the West as an Asian, I also talk about dating as an Asian in the West. Remember, subscribe so that you're not going to miss out. Here are 3 points what I've learned the hard way. The first point is that remember, it is better to challenge your boss than not giving any opinion. As I mentioned, the consultants were being fired the first day I arrived at work because they did not challenge my boss. In Asia, being obedient is a good thing. In fact, if a boss asks for an opinion, the best thing you could do is to add on something complimentary, and the best is to just shut up and execute that. However, in the West, having no opinion could be a red flag for the boss because you are supposed to have your own critical thinking to add on input to the decision-making process. Of course, at the end of the day, the boss needs to take responsibility for his or her decision, but still, we are supposed to give the input. Or else, why don't they just outsource your job to somewhere in, guess it, in Asia, in the Philippines, or in the future even to ChatGPT or AI. So that's why it's extremely important that you have your own opinion. Have you ever challenged your boss in your life? Leave in the comments below, yes or no. The second reason why Asian culture ruined my career in the West is that critical thinking is not optional in the West. That's why it's a huge shock to me as an Asian when my boss told me that she was considering firing those consultants just because they don't have their own opinion or challenge her. In fact, if you grew up in Asia, you know that you're supposed to listen to your teacher, listen to your parents, listen to your boss at work, without ever challenging them. So for me, it's a complete new thing that I need to think myself and think in a different way and challenge what they have told you. Because for example, when studying, you just spoon-fed all the information into your brain, remember the questions, remember the answers, and then blame. Spit them out during the exams and then you get a high grade, and that's it. This is a totally new thing to have critical thinking. This becomes particularly evident when 2 years ago my boss went on parental leave. Well, remember, parental leave here can last up to 14 months. I can have a separate video talk about that. But anyway, I was forced to lead the team as the only full-time staff, and it was extremely challenging because no one is telling you what to do. You just need to think about what outcome you want to achieve, what's the strategy of achieving that, what exact decision you need to make in order to make that happen. This comes to the third reason why Asian cultures has ruined my career in the West. Because execution is the focus in Asia, which is a good thing as an employee, but here you talk about strategies. At the beginning, I had no idea what to do. Because in Asia, you got the order, you execute it, you work hard, and that's it. Here you will talk about what exact outcome you want to achieve, what is the strategy to achieve the outcome, and then here comes the task, which you need to execute flawlessly in order to make that happen. Here are some examples I talk about. The first one is that when I joined a partnership team which create innovative partnerships with big companies like Google, I was facing a challenge, almost got fired without passing the probation because I came in, I expect to be told what I need to do. Instead, I was being asked, what is your strategy? What do you want to achieve? And I had zero idea. I felt miserably at the beginning. Luckily, later I became the favorite and I had a 50% raise in salary, but I was super lucky. The second example is that I worked with a global board member at some point, and one day he said, "Hey Eric, I really like you, I think you work very hard, but why on earth are you asking for me many tiny decisions? I'm a board member, and you just need to learn from failures and mistakes in order to excel." The expectations of the big bosses is that first you identify the problems, and then you need to come up with 2 to 3 solutions. You would introduce the solutions to the boss and make recommendation to one of them. And then of course at the end of the day, the boss would make the decision based on your information and recommendations. They will take the responsibility. But you also have a lot of ownerships to make sure that those data are correct and the solutions make sense. Doing the work is just the baseline. The expectation in general is that you are supposed to contribute to new ideas, challenge existing assumptions, and to make new recommendations or at least input to help decision making. Or why don't we just outsource it to Asia, to India, to the Philippines, for someone to execute it, or even to AI with ChatGPT, rather than hiring you in Europe or in the West. What do you think about it? Do you think that I oversimplify it? Leave it in the comments below. Remember to subscribe so that I can tell you more stories.